NATO foreign ministers are holding an emergency meeting in Brussels over Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The NATO chief condemned Russian recklessness in his opening comments after Russia seized control of Ukraine's largest nuclear reactor through force. The allies have been bolstering their eastern flank since Russia began deploying its troops near Ukraine. NATO has for the first time activated its rapid response force to add to thousands of troops already sent in by its allies to the eastern borders. Though NATO has been sending weapons to Ukraine, with as many as 22,000 more troops being sent to member states bordering Russia and Belarus. The allies, however, remain adamant that they will not get involved militarily in the war in Ukraine.
Being part of the transatlantic experience about steps we're going to take next. Thank you.
For more analysis, we are now being joined live by our correspondent Rosie Burchard from Brussels for more details. Rosie, thanks so much for joining us. Let's start talking about the shocking development coming in earlier today. Even as NATO foreign ministers hold an emergency meeting in Brussels, Ukraine says that Russian forces have seized control of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, the largest such facility in Europe, something that is a big danger for Europe. What can you tell us about this?
Well, Priyanka, you used the word shocking. That was a word used by the Czech foreign minister on his way into those talks with other NATO foreign ministers, with his NATO counterparts. He said he was personally shocked. The NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said this really shows Russia's recklessness. And we also heard from the EU's top diplomat, Josep Borrell, that this has grave security implications for the whole of Europe. So certainly a sense of shock here. However, we did hear some questions to NATO foreign ministers on their way into talks. They said they were asked whether this would drag NATO into a conflict with Russia, and they simply said that that cannot be, and that NATO cannot be dragged into a conflict. As you mentioned, they are adamant, NATO allies are adamant that they will not be intervening militarily in Ukraine. There will be no NATO boots on the ground there because Ukraine is not a member of NATO, which is a defensive alliance.
Right, Rosie, thanks for those updates. My next question, just to follow up to that, Ukraine's President Zelensky accuses Russia of wanting to repeat Chernobyl and nuclear terror, and this is what he said in his call with US President Joe Biden. But Putin remains to be unfazed. And today's development has, in a sense, alarmed the world about where is this conflict heading. What are your views?
Absolutely. Well, here in Brussels, this is a kind of bumper day of meetings as Western powers try to plot out what they'll do next. That NATO ministerial is currently ongoing. That will be followed by talks among G7 foreign ministers. And after that, EU foreign ministers will hold talks just a few meters from where I am. They'll be discussing how to proceed and particularly what they can do to respond to this. We heard from the EU's top diplomat, Josep Borrell. He said nothing is off the table in terms of further sanctions. The EU has already slapped several rounds of sanctions on Russia, including cutting several Russian banks off from the SWIFT international payment system. But we understand they may now be mulling even tougher measures.
Right, Rosie, thanks so much for all those insights and thanks for joining us on WION. And WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.